Kobolds embody the archetype of the underdog made dangerous through sheer numbers, cunning preparation, and usually draconic devotion, but not always. They have evolved across editions from weak goblinoid dogmen in the early D&D to explicitly reptilian dragonkin, and finally, as a fully draconic species. Their core identity has always remained consistent: small, weak individually, but lethal in coordinated groups, obsessed with traps, mining, and serving greater powers. As usual, I researched as many sources as I could find to bring you a comprehensive synthesis drawn from core books such as the Monster Manuals, Volo's Guide to Monsters, Races of the Dragon, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, the Kobold Press monster books, plus campaign settings with a focus on the Forgotten Realms, and magazines such as Dragon Issue 127 and 332, plus 4th edition's online magazine articles on Kobold tactics. I also pondered a very interesting campaign idea you can use in your own games, if you like it. At the very least, it should be frighteningly entertaining. We are going to learn as much about kobolds as we can, as fast as we can, from mythology to history to ecology and much more. So, my warm-blooded friend, settle back, grab yourself a tasty beverage. It's time to get deeply nerdy. Kobolds are a very widespread species, highly adaptable. Variations exist in all sorts of climatic conditions, even aquatic and Arctic areas, though they are cold-blooded and reptilian, with a distinctive bluish-purple blood. They are only very susceptible to rapid cooling. Otherwise, they have metabolisms that can compensate quite well and are tolerant of the very hot and humid conditions found deep underground, including relatively contaminated or poor air. They stand on average between 2 and 2.5 feet tall, weighing in at less than 50 pounds or about 23 kilograms. So while they are lean and wiry, they simply don't have the mass and overall strength to compare to your average human, and they are well aware of this. They have scaled skin that comes in many different colors, depending on the environment and their draconic affinity, but the most common has red tones dominant, with mottled scales ranging from rusty brown to reddish black, kind of iguana-like. Their eyes are almost always a burnt orange to a deep red color. They can see well in the dark, but don't like bright sunlight. They have narrow dog-dragon skulls with forward-positioned nostrils, forked tongues that tend to extend and flutter when agitated, a small pair of keratin horns between swept-back and mobile ears. They may have a dorsal crest or keratin spines running down their back, but this varies a lot. They walk upright with digitigrade legs, and their fingers and toes are clawed. Their feeble jaws are shaped more like a crocodile's, with a respectable sense of smell, nowhere near as acute as a dog, but better than a human. Their teeth are uniform, short, and pointed. The full set of 54 regrows every 2 to 3 years, and it's common for kobolds to save them as jewelry to display their age. Their diet is omnivorous. They eat plants, animals, vermin, fungi, or desperate fare like tree bark and old bones. They can go days without food, but are much more sensitive to cold and need to sleep a lot longer when doing so, piling together to share their body heat. Kobolds smell of wet dog fur and stagnant water and favor ragged red-orange clothing. Just a simple cord and loincloth or leather hide is perfectly functional for miners, while leaders will have the finest garments adorned with gems, and the shaman will have the most complicated and striking outfits though, and invariably the most impressive headgear that they can carry on their head without collapsing under the weight of their own importance. When they shed their skin, roughly every 1 to 2 weeks when young and seasonally when older, they like to rub a plant called bitterleaf on their scales, as it serves to ease the discomfort and strengthen their hide after shedding. They also bathe communally. Essentially, everything kobolds do is done communally. The concept of privacy is mostly foreign to them. They absolutely understand what secrets are. Oh boy, do they understand secrecy. Kobolds form insular, overcrowded tribal warrens in caves, mines, or dense forests and jungles shaded by a high canopy. They are masterful miners, using divination to pinpoint the location of ore and gems. This gives their minds a twisting, seemingly chaotic layout compared to the minds of the goodly races, which are almost always more planned and linear. As the kobolds excavate, they hollow out chambers and adapt any natural cave formations they break into. Some are designated as fungus farms, always with ready access to water or around shafts that ventilate humid air to condense the moisture for growing fungus. They also farm vermin of many kinds, particularly grubs, insects, rodents, burrowing or cave-adapted reptiles, blind cave fish and crustaceans. A select few kinds of ooze, and have chambers where their livestock and material byproducts are shaped into all manner of tools, equipment, building supplies, and food. Other chambers include secure and separated areas where hazardous acids, reactive chemicals, reagents, and toxins are located, and more dangerous oozes, insects, and similar materials are kept. Most of the acids and toxins they employ in their traps and special weaponry are harvested from the flora and fauna they have gathered and bred for just such a purpose. Kobolds all work to expand their warren, as the young and eager hammer and pry at the rock, carting it away by any means available. The older and more experienced specialists direct the secondary purpose of the tunnels, which is warren defense, air circulation, water irrigation, and of course, in service of whatever greater master they serve, which is usually a dragon. Kobolds have always collected and cherished small personal or family hoards of gems, jewelry they craft from mined ore, shiny trinkets, coins, and broken and adventuring gear. Mining is their art. Each brood carves its own chamber and adorns the walls with pictorial histories while hoarding pretty stones for statues and for status and jewelry. Dragon-bound tribes contribute to and guard their master's massive hoard, but they don't amass millions of gold or use it as a magical battery like the true dragons. Usually, but I have an interesting theory for you with the additional lore on the Great Worms. I'll run by you a little later if you are interested, so stay tuned for Kobold Elder Worms if you're a supporter of mine. Like dragons, kobolds lay eggs, around 6 per year per female. If the ratio of males to females gets too unbalanced in the warren, individuals will change gender over the course of several months. This makes kobolds rather difficult to eradicate, as you'd imagine. The eggs are about 3 times the size of a chicken egg. They are sturdy, hard-shelled reptilian eggs. They are not dark or covered in scales. However, those rare few who are imbued with draconic essence, called dragon-wrought kobolds, do have flecks of colour in their shells, so are recognised immediately, but are not much larger than the others. The eggs are incubated communally for as few as 45 to as long as 60 days. Even if the egg is broken open up to 15 days early, the hatchling can usually survive. The hatchlings are 6 to 8 inches tall, emerging curled and then standing up, fully mobile shortly after hatching. They don't nurse on milk. Adults will simply regurgitate a bit of food to assist the hatchling with its gut bacteria, but they are born able to hunt and eat grubs and bugs and grow quickly on this rich food source. They will consume a maggot-riddled corpse and gnaw on the bones without any problems, though they do tend to have a high attrition rate from their playful and curious nature, getting them killed in the busy and rather dangerous warren environment. Hatchlings are raised communally by the entire tribe. The adults all feel parental ownership of the hatchlings. They will steer them clear of danger or instruct them. They enjoy playing with them, and the smarter hatchlings will tend to form a strong attachment to an adult who pays attention to them fondly and gives them treats and plays with them, learning and growing faster, tending to avoid fatal accidents. Still, adults are often too busy to watch them all the time, the exception being the dragon-wrought eggs, which are cared for by the shamans and receive special ritual treatment. The hatchlings identify themselves according to who was young when they were young and where they were hatched. This is their version of sibling relationship. Otherwise, every member of the tribe is a member of their immediate family. Hatchlings die, though, frequently. This upsets the tribe, of course, but kobolds accept this as just a natural weeding process. The smart and the strong survive. The stupid and the frail die. Hatchlings don't even get proper names until they're able to start talking and distinguish themselves in the brood. They reach breeding age at age 6 and are fully grown within 10 years. There's about a 10% chance that an egg will contain twins who survive to hatching. Despite many kobolds dying, of a dizzying array of causes, their actual lifespan under ideal conditions can be as long as 120 to 140 years. Those reaching such a venerable age are about as rare as hen's teeth, but it's entirely possible. Kobolds do form romantic bonds between each other. They don't mate for life though. It's typically seasonal and based on circumstance and convenience. Two working closely together will tend to mate together. While the female needs to lay her egg, she will go to the hatchling chamber, lay her egg and add it to the pile, spending some time tending to the egg's incubation. And the trap makers and beast tenders always tend to spend more time incubating the brood, as they spend a lot more time in the warren chambers closest to the hatching chamber, and are always wandering around making sure the traps are in good repair and the vermin are not out of containment and endangering the eggs. When in service to a dragon, the priests of the kobold god Kurtulmak will perform blessings. They will also perform blessings on behalf of the dragon they serve, since dragons rarely do this for kobolds, despite their minions contributing so significantly to their hoard of treasure and so many other duties in the dragon's lair. Killing or collecting vermin, setting traps, managing other monsters the dragon has decided to keep in close proximity, and constantly sourcing and preparing snacks or scouting for game that the dragon can hunt when it's in the mood. Their most dangerous task by far, aside from avoiding annoying the dragon and becoming a snack or another corpse for the livestock pens or mushroom cabins, is dealing with adventuring goodly folk invading the dragon's lair, all too often assuming the kobold warrens are the less dangerous way to get in, like they're some sort of back door or unguarded sewer grate. More on kobold religion in a minute, but let me tell you why you should never think kobold warrens are less dangerous than a dragon's lair. If there were a top 10 list of creatures who craft the most fiendish traps in existence, the top 5 I think are gnomes, dwarves, humans, Arania, and I would say goblins are in that top 5 for sure. Traps are considered a high art and a form of religious worship by kobolds. I did consider making this part a separate video, but this is the complete guide to kobolds. So my friend, grab yourself a tasty beverage, check it carefully, we're about to get deeply nasty. I mean, deeply nerdy, again. Researching this stuff had me cackling like a lunatic for hours on end. You may want to grab a pen and paper and take notes here. First, did you know that they have another god specifically involved in trap making? Gaknulak is a lawful evil demigod of trickery, stealth, and protective construction from old Dragon magazine lore and monster mythology. Plus, Dragon magazine issue 127 and the Tucker's Kobolds article is required reading. The legendary Grimtooth's traps books are also insanely nasty, and I even delved into traps created by the Vietnamese and Ewoks, Native American Paiute, African tribes, medieval European warfare, and Celtic folklore. I've condensed all this down to around 25 classics. So here goes. Starting with 3 traps you'll find on the approach to and entry point of the lair or warren. Gaknulak's false idol pit is where a glittering dragon hoard of fake gold, which is just painted rocks, sits on pressure plates over a 20-foot pit lined with poison punji stakes. These are bamboo shards smeared in kobold waste and worm spittle poison. A tripwire releases a rock slide behind the curious and greedy intruders just to ensure they at least get pummeled, if not shoved into the pit. Literally a rock in a sharp and nasty place. Tiamat's welcome mat is where there's a woven red reed mat over a shallow pit of caltrops mixed with broken glass and alchemical dragonfire resin that ignites on impact. Waiting kobolds in bolt holes yank a cord to flip the mat. Flaming caltrops stuck all over one's body is not a fun experience. The dragon's tongue is a long, narrow tongue of greased planks leading to the lair entrance. Kobolds hidden above pour oil and flaming barrels roll down it. They also have a concealed spiked-lined pit under the plank, just for good measure. If you make it into the tunnels and warrens, you face a twisting and turning nightmare of bottlenecks, switchbacks, and some of these classic traps. The kobold's rat tunnel squeeze is a narrow 2-foot wide crawl space that kobolds can zip through with ease. It has spring-loaded bamboo whip spears, which are sharpened stakes on tensioned roots that fire when a tripvine is disturbed. false walls hide side tunnels for flanking. Tucker's flaming oil sluice has ceiling grooves filled with rendered fat and pitch. Kobolds waiting above in murder holes drop like lit rags, turning the tunnel into an inferno. Escape hatches let kobolds flee, while intruders burn to a tasty crisp. The Goblin Folk Deadfall log is a classic, a massive log or boulder, painted with dragon scales, propped up by notched sticks over a baited tripcord. Triggering it drops it. The trigger is usually in a low, tight space that slams right down on crawling foes' spines. The Beehive Boulder Ambush is a hollowed boulder packed with angry hornets or sturge nests, which is rigged to roll down a slope on a trigger. Kobolds poke it from safety to keep it nice and furious. Many of the entrance and warren tunnel traps feature guards who sit and relax with long spears and simple crossbows, taking a break from mining duties to get some fresh air. They sometimes chat to each other by clicking and tapping on rocks, snacking on dried fungus sticks dipped in grub gravy. As one arrives in the chambers and the core of the lair, the traps become real kill zones of elaborate design. The Kobold inventor's scrap gatling is a wagon wheel frame studded with crossbow mechanisms, which is cranked by a hidden kobold to spray bolts around a corner. The acid dragon spit pool is a shallow dragon fountain pool of diluted green slime mixed with vinegar. A thin stone lid cracks under any weight, and any kobolds nearby can pull cords to uncork the top of pipes to spray more acid from the top and the sides. Stone pipes filled with green slime, corks and cords can be installed just about anywhere in the lair and can be horribly effective. The snake pit false floor features a bamboo tubes or cage full of venomous snakes or constrictor snakes with dragon tattoos that are released by tripwire into a pit disguised as solid floor. Kobolds in the ceiling love watching intruders getting murdered by snakes. When possible, they will try this with scorpions, centipedes, rats, spiders, carrion crawlers, rot grubs, gelatinous cubes, mimics, green slime, even a giant toad or a roper, though they find ropers and piercers more trouble than they are worth due to how dangerous they are. The same with chouls. Kobolds have a very healthy and justified fear of chouls and also avoid the undead when possible. The Flower Bomb Dragon Breath trap consists of sacks of flowers secured to the ceiling with hidden lanterns or holes through which the kobolds drop lit torches or little grenades. The intruders kick a wire, flower dust plumes, and then explodes into a fireball as the flame ignites it and consumes all the oxygen in an instant. The swinging pendulum of Tiamat's tail is another use of a giant spiked log or rusty chain with carved dragon skull weights suspended by sturdy ropes, released to arc across the chamber at head height for medium creatures. This misses the kobolds entirely, of course, as they are small. An advanced version has the ropes release concealed war spikes or a sliding pit cover as the log or chain sweeps across the chamber, in case the crushing impact is not enough to do the job. Kobolds love rust monsters. They are small enough to ride them. Though dragons tend to discourage this practice, kobolds not in service to dragons will keep and train them like goblinoids keep and train wargs. If the kobolds are all using napped flint or obsidian blades, spear tips and spiked clubs, this is a good indicator that they keep a lot of rust monsters, and you may be facing some dungeon cavalry that dwarves have nightmares about. Kobolds use them in fiendishly clever ways, such as trigger releasing a rust monster who will eagerly consume a chain holding a stone ceiling suspended over the chamber, where ropes would normally be insufficient for that sort of massive weight. The Caltrop web trap appears to be a floor strewn with wicked little caltrops, all too obvious. Slow movement to a crawl, and while concealed between the spikes are spider silk lines that ring little bells and alert kobolds to attack intruders, but may also just summon hungry giant spiders, of course. Occasionally some cave fishes, though kobolds find them difficult to keep safely. Kobolds keep oil-slicked barrels they leap into like fighter pilots and roll through the chambers to spill out and swarm intruders at close range. This is a favorite tactic of a particular type of kobold therianthrope I'll be describing soon. They may also just fill the barrels with caltrops that scatter everywhere the barrel goes as it rolls, rebounds, and bounces chaotically. The poison gas chimney is a vent that kobolds release a mixture of burning sulfur and toxic mushroom spores into lower chambers, taking advantage of existing venting tubes and chimney flues. The kobolds suddenly wrapping wet rags around their snouts is the only warning you will get before the whole chamber gets misted by this noxious stuff. Root triggers are where the kobolds have cut living sections from predatory plants that react to vibration and sometimes just heat by contracting, pulling on cords that release snares or drop nets, or release floor panels with great force and hurl intruders into ceiling-mounted spikes that can be quite hard to detect. They also just grow entangling vines in chambers that they don't use much anymore, and these are much more common for jungle and forest-dwelling kobolds. The molten scrap cascade is an overhead trough of scavenged metal heated by a nearby forge vent, triggering it to dump molten slag like pyrotechnic cement truck chutes. The decoy throne trap is where the kobolds build a fake chief's throne, which is just a mesh pressure plate that collapses into a pit of snakes while fake treasure scatters down. Why? This encourages the truly stupid to try and climb down to retrieve it if the screams of their perforated companions is not enough to get them climbing in. The walls of the pit are covered in grease, of course, and they treat the pit like a privy for a long time so that the bottom is teeming with foulness. The Snapdragon seesaw is just a balanced plank over a spike-filled pit. There is an enticing bait of some kind at the end of the plank. Usually this is a well-crafted treasure chest. As soon as someone gets halfway across the plank, it flips and the victim plummets down into the pit. The chest then counterweights the reset and resets the trap. There are many variations on this simple design, such as the chest being a mimic, for example. The Murder Hole Crossfire Gallery is a series of arrow slits at kobold height and preloaded heavy crossbows on swivels. Kobolds reload from safety while adventurers usually end up crawling on the floor to avoid getting heavily pin-cushioned by the concealed and well-protected archers. If the kobolds have access to electric eels, they love to stock a flooded chamber with them and have multiple greased chutes that lead to the chamber from above. The Bouncing Betty Boulder, a buried spring-loaded log studded with stakes that bounces upward when triggered. This is so effective the dwarves copied the design principles into stone versions. The Fairy Ring Pitfall is found in the fungus farming chambers, where no doubt a shrieker is screaming its cap off. The Mushroom Fairy Ring is actually a simple illusion that hides a 10-foot drop into webbed spikes where quite a few poisonous spiders react very unkindly to sudden arrivals. The Chimney Sweep is actually just a simple sharpened and greased log that the kobolds drop down any escape shaft if some intruders decide to try and chase after them. The Gotcha is a shallow and small trap that has a thin and brittle cover over a trigger that slams together with spiked sides of the trap, trapping the foot and inflicting severe lacerations, basically a concealed gym trap. The ultimate Gak Naluk Gambit is a layered masterpiece. First there's a trap that intruders fall down. This triggers a sluice to pour something noxious on them. Then secret panels drop down to reveal arrow slits and holes the kobolds can stab long spears full of excrement through. They often construct these traps through narrow bottlenecks. They know smarter groups of intruders will try to defend against the swarm of kobolds pouring into a larger chamber, because this is exactly the sort of thing they've seen happen many, many times. Kobolds are not stupid. These traps are just a few classic examples. Kobolds vary how they employ all these techniques, as you can see. They don't often use magic and illusions and prefer manual controls or simple gravity-operated triggers rather than mechanisms that are quite difficult to make. Without a lot of blacksmithing techniques they seldom bother to learn. While they are industrious miners and tireless tinkerers, they are individually quite frail and don't work that well alone. So traps that require a huge team of kobolds using simple physics and their combined strength is where they shine. They avoid engaging in close combat unless they have superior numbers. But there are exceptions to this rule. The Theory Drakon is not well known and poorly understood why, but Kobolds have a naturally occurring form of were-creature curse, where there are rare individuals that are just hatched with the curse of being were-dire weasels. And they are very well suited to close-quarters combat indeed. I have coined the term Ethereal for the more precise and pedantic accuracy, as kobolds are not humans. The anthropy refers to human, while they are dragons, or drakon in Greek, so Theridrakon, beast dragon. People refer to all were-creatures as lycanthropes. Yes, it refers to wolves specifically, but it's a general term commonly used and not a big deal. Just let it go, man. Don't sweat the small stuff. Moving on. Kobold society is lawful evil. The hierarchy is practical. Chieftains, priests, either the eyes of Kurtlemak or those who interact directly with their dragon overlord, the worm priests. With specialists such as trap makers, ore diviners, mine engineers, vermin masters, fungus farmers, and elite warriors, all holding power and have telltale habits. Warriors are paranoid and alert, as sleeping on duty can mean they get donated to special trap testing duty. Or diviners are spooky little rock sniffers who would be considered delusional if they didn't happen to be proven right time and time again. Those roles are assigned to those who display a natural aptitude, and among those with specific inclinations. Those who are the best at it or have done it for a longer sort out who is in charge of what. It's chaotic, but always about the survival of the tribe and their own greater good. Everyone contributes to the role, and the chieftain is there to make inspiring speeches and make decisions where there is no obvious choice and someone needs to decide based on nothing more than their best guess, but look damned confident about it. Kobolds are fanatically loyal to their tribe, but individually self-serving, reacting to the misfortunes of others with a better you than me attitude. Patrols will deliberately include weak members as cannon fodder, for example. Kobolds resent and dislike species that are taller than they are, but invariably the tallest kobold in a group will tend to be the one in charge. Go figure. Kobolds have a common tongue. They all speak Yip-Yak, very close related to the Draconic language, but with distinct yipping sounds described as more like dog sounds. A high proportion of the tribe are miners, of course. Each family group carves its own chamber, adorning walls with pictorial family histories, such as murals or traps, battles, and dragons. They collect little hoards of treasure and keep particularly good tools on proud display. Miners carry rock explosives called dither bombs and special lamps that won't ignite flammable gas deposits. When navigating a kobold warren, a good thing to remember is that the only straight paths lead to death, so always follow the twisting path. Stay low and watch for where the kobolds don't step, because if they see you matching their movements, they will automatically lead you to your doom. Kobolds are extremely cunning. Without a dragon overlord, kobolds focus on pure tribal survivals, more cautious, keeping the tribe's numbers to no more than 200, and ready to grab their clutch of some 20 to 50 eggs and flee to a backup warren or cleared cabin with tools to start rebuilding. They worship of Kurtlemak and seek magic to free him from his gnome prison. Their warrens have a heavier emphasis on mushroom farms, vermin herds, and animal guardians. Their activities outside the warren are all about raids for food and treasure, stealthy theft from settlements, and imitation of stronger cultures. So their tactics lean towards guerrilla ambushes and trap-filled borders. They still revere dragons abstractly but secretly, keeping their distance when one appears. If the tribe numbers get too high, they start to naturally form a couple of factions who gravitate towards different charismatic leaders. They then will engage in sort of ritual non-lethal war games, then split, and one faction will leave the warren to establish a new location. To them, this is all motivated by a sense of expansion, training, and the greater good of their people. There is seldom any real animosity or true violence involved, even though their war games can get pretty brutal if they are testing out innovative new trap designs or the games involve predatory monsters. If the agreement that the tribe who brings back a certain monster skull gets to stay in the warren, you can imagine the attrition rate that can result. But in the end, the overall result is that the less worthy are weeded out of the tribes. Tribes who end up led by an influential worm priest will seek out a chromatic dragon to give tribute via food, treasure, and sacrifices, preferably other species, but they come to see being devoured by the dragon to be an honor. If accepted by the dragon, the tribe's entire life cycle, breeding, society, and mining revolve around the master. Eggs may receive draconic blessings, dragon-wrought young gain elevated status, breeding intensifies to produce more servants. Social dynamics become even more hierarchical and fanatical. Warriors guard, priests lead rituals and dances, mining expands the dragon's hoard and lair by digging treasure caches and fortifying with traps for the dragon's defense. Kobolds present constant tributes, scout, and handle menial tasks. If rejected, they serve secretly anyway. This symbiosis grants protection that makes the tribe expendable in the long run, though. Kobolds survive this way more than those who don't serve dragons. Kobold origins in the Forgotten Realms are tied to the earliest days of draconic life in On Toril, around minus 24,500 Dale Reckoning, during the time of dragons. The dragon god Asgarath, also known as Io, granted true dragons the secret of creating life. The green dragon Kassenjak used this power to create the first kobold, called Kurtlemak, directly from her own blood and ritual magic. Kurtlemak, larger and more cunning than later kobolds, became her chief servant and intermediary. Under his leadership, his offspring kobolds constructed Darastrix Horthi, a vast underground labyrinth nation of metropolises that served as a vassal state to Kassenjak's dragon kingdom in the region that would later become Ethereal. The kobolds proved masterful miners and trapmakers, rapidly expanding their territory. Conflict erupted when the kobolds encountered the newly created gnomes. They enslaved gnome populations and stole the gnome soul gems containing the unborn souls of gnomes. This provoked their god Gal Glittergold, who responded by collapsing the entire mountain housing Darastrix Horthi, forming what later became known as the Shallow Sea. Simultaneously, the first rage of dragons swept Toril as dragons went mad. Kassenjak turned on her kobold servants in her fury, and most of the kobold nation perished in the collapse and the ensuing chaos. Kuraliek, a dragon-wrought kobold and leader of the fledgling Erd population, which are winged kobolds, had been ordered to watch for Kassenjak's return and warn the nation, but instead fled with his Erds to the bat-haunted caverns of the Thunder Peaks, abandoning his kin. Asgarath, taking pity on the surviving dragon spawn, resurrected and elevated the dying Kurtlemak to full deityhood as the eternal protector of kobolds. Upon learning of Kuraliek's betrayal, the newly divine Kurtlemak swore eternal vengeance, but Asgarath also elevated Kuraliek to demigod status to safeguard the Erds and prevent the complete extinction of the Ether race. Thus, kobolds and Erds became the first artificial dragon spawn created by true dragons, rather than direct creations of the gods. Kobolds do not accept this neutral historical account. Their oral traditions, wall murals, and priestly teachings present a far more heroic and self-aggrandizing mythology centered on Kurtlemak as their literal creator and savior. They believe Kurtlemak was the first kobold given life by the dragons, and that he immediately invented the pickaxe, advanced mining techniques, sorcery, traps, and the very concept of kobold civilization, founding Darastrix Horthi as the perfect draconic fortress. Gal Glittergold is portrayed as a jealous coward who could not tolerate kobold ingenuity and cheated by collapsing the mountain because the kobolds were surpassing gnomes in every craft, justifying the eternal kobold-gnome war. After the catastrophe, Asgarath, or in some tellings Tiamat herself, elevated Kurtlemak to godhood so that he could continue guiding his people. Loyal kobolds who die in service to the tribe are reincarnated by Kurtlemak directly into new eggs in the communal hatchery. He is said to be eternally trapped in a gnome-dug maze, which is why kobolds constantly quest for magic items to free him. True dragons, especially chromatic ones, are regarded as living gods and blood kin. Serving them is the highest honor, and being devoured is a sacred reward. Kobolds exist to multiply draconic power. In mainstream kobold mythology, Urds and Kuraliek are despised as traitors. Kuraliek is depicted as a coward who stole wings, either from Kurtulmak or the Aarakocra goddess Serenita, and fled during the Rage, dooming the rest of the race. Shrines to Kurtulmak often feature a defiled winged statue representing Kuraliek, and so that kobolds ritually cover it in dung. Kobolds view their entire history as one of heroic endurance against betrayal by Kuraliek, gnomes, and mad dragons, sustained only by Kurtulmak's divine favour. Kobold mythology is not monolithic, though, and tribes adapt stories to their circumstances. In the popular Tiamat's Lost Egg myth, shortly after Tiamat laid her first clutch of eggs, thieves raided her lair. Enraged, she fought them off, but was wounded. To protect her remaining eggs while she healed, she forced the first one to hatch early, producing Kurtulmak, infused with the fraction of her divine power. Realizing one guardian was insufficient, Kurtulmak caused another egg to hatch prematurely, creating miniature versions of herself, the first true kobolds. In this telling, kobolds literally hatched from Tiamat's stolen or lost eggs, making them direct children of the Dragon Queen. Other variants claimed the mortal Kurtulmak stole the secret of sorcery from a dragon deity before creating his people, or blend the gnome conflict with Tiamat by stating Gal stole from her horde, prompting her to dispatch Kurtulmak, who was then trapped in the collapsing cavern. From the Urd perspective, rarely heard by ground kobolds, Kuraliek is the true hero who granted them the gift of flight and saved a remnant of the race from extinction, while Kurtulmak is seen as a tyrant who would have kept them wingless and subservient. These varieties coexist peacefully within tribes, however. It's not all animosity. Kuraliek remains the demigod patron of Urds. Ground-dwelling kobolds universally despise him as the original betrayer, while Urds revere him as the horned thief or winged kobold who stole the ultimate gift of flight and created them as the superior form of kobold. His symbol is a pair of feathered wings, sometimes said to have been stolen from the Aarakocra goddess Serenita. He is paranoid and cowardly, hiding in the realm of Urd's Rest in Hades or the Barrens of Doom and Despair out of terror of Kurtulmak's wrath, and Urd shamans actively suppress any Kurtulmak worship among their flocks of Urds. In both the historical record and mythology, the schism between kobolds and Urds dates to the exact moment of Darastric Horthy's fall. Kuraliek's flight is the original sin that split the first Dragonspawn race in two. This body of lore explains why kobolds are simultaneously draconic supremacists, paranoid trapmakers, and eternal underdogs. Their gods in history teach them that they were born to serve dragons, betrayed by their own kin, nearly wiped out by gnomes, and kept alive only by divine intervention. It is a mythology perfectly engineered to justify their survival tactics, hatreds, and fanatical loyalty. This concludes the purely source-based and canonical complete guide to kobolds, free for all to enjoy and use. There is a much expanded version of this video which covers speculation on the new information on Great Worms revealed in the latest edition of Dungeons & Dragons, how kobolds, now officially draconic, could in theory create their own version of Great Worms, more information on the specialist variants and the Urds, with more source material from Kobold Press and their monster tomes created for the Midgard world setting, which has a very active dragon empire, as well as an entire campaign theme centered on some genetically and magically transformed kobolds created by the Mind Flayers to hunt down and kill Brainstealer dragons, which then became an independent and powerful faction called the Vainsguard, who hunt and kill all dragons, complete with full stat blocks so that they can be included in a campaign right away. If this interests you, head over to my Fourthwall site and sign up for a monthly membership to access all my exclusive content, with my great gratitude and my pledge to answer any and all messages from my supporters, offering my services as your sage of Candlekeep and professional campaign planning muse. My name is AJ Pickett. As always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.